Let's cross now live to Daniel McAdams, Executive Director of the Ron Paul Institute for Peace and Prosperity. It's nice to have you join me right now, Daniel. Now, concerns are growing in the United States over Joe Biden's mental health, and calls for his withdrawal are becoming even louder by the day. How would you describe what we are currently seeing in the U.S. presidential race?
Well, I agree with my old friend Ben Swan on his analysis of the media role in this. The media has played, without repeating what he said, the media has played the role the last several years of covering up for President Biden's obvious decline. Anyone who follows the president, anyone who gets off the network for a minute and goes on places like Twitter X and looks at clips there know that this is not a president at his prime by a long shot. My only question is, I don't know, maybe Ben is right, but I don't know that the objective is to get rid of him at this point. I don't see anyone waiting in the wings with any strength. Karine Jean-Pierre said that he picked Harris because she's the future of the party. She got exactly 0 primary delegates when she ran in 2020, compared to Biden's 2,600 and Sanders over 1,000 delegates. She got 0. Nobody voted for her. So the idea that she's the future of the party is a long shot. What's happening? I don't know what's happening exactly. But I do know that they're trying to get out in front of this cognitive problem. Now, if Joe had a bad night after traveling a lot, and he does a few hopped up appearances on the media where he's gotten some of his happy juice and seems to have gotten his mojo back, my guess is they're trying to preserve him because there's no one waiting in the wings, and they're going to cancel the second debate.
All right. Now, you mentioned the issue of the media earlier on. Now, after the disastrous debate, there has been a change in the mainstream media narrative, with even CNN reversing its previous stance and now questioning Biden's mental health. Now, how do you interpret such a U-turn, and what do you make of the timing?
Well, because they all got caught with their pants down, right? They were all lying to us for years that he was perfectly fine. And then literally everyone in America switched on the debate and realized they'd been lying to us. So they had to cover their tracks. It's just that simple. The media is about controlling the narrative, and that's what they tried to do. They saw it getting out of their hands because, well, we're not as dumb as they think we are, and we can see that there's something wrong with the guy. So I think that explains a lot of the media's immediate and abrupt about-face. I think you got to see them walking back this about-face. We've already seen some of it. They're going to walk back the about-face. So they're going to print the talking points of the Biden people saying it was a bad night, he was traveling, he had a cold, this and that and the other.
Now, an ambiguous situation in the U.S. with Democrats calling for Biden to withdraw while his family is encouraging him to stay in the race. Now, who do you think is at the wheel in this situation right here?
Well, I would just point out that there are really no prominent Democrats calling for him to step down. Now, Lloyd Doggett is a congressman from Texas. He's been in Congress a long time, but he's hardly a front bencher. He's not a bad guy, but he's not a front bencher. I haven't seen anyone by name of serious prominence in the Democrat Party put their name on a statement saying Biden should step down. So, again, I think the press is overplaying this part as well.
Now, let's create a scenario here. If Donald Trump wins the election, could the situation change? And do you think that the so-called deep state will keep running things from behind the scenes? Is that possible?
I think it's probable. And I think, if I have to choose between Biden and Trump, and I'm not a voter, but I would certainly hope that Trump would win because there's a chance of him doing the right thing. There's 0 chance of Trump doing the right thing. I mean, of Biden doing the right thing. The problem with Trump are the same problems that he had in 2016. He always picks the wrong people. He always picks people from the deep state to fight the deep state. So, and he hasn't really shown that he has learned from his mistakes in the past. So I think that what's going to happen is a lot of neocons are going to cozy up to him. They're going to flatter him. He's going to name them some prominent positions, and they'll continue to do what Pompeo and Bolton and the rest of them did, which is to stab Trump in the back at every opportunity.
All right, now let's create another scenario here. If Biden withdraws or he is replaced in the race, who could be the Democratic Party nominee for the presidency? Let's create some scenarios here. What are you hearing?
I don't think anybody could. Gavin Newsom has destroyed California, one of the most beautiful states in the union. It's an absolute disaster. Whitmer is a nobody. Nobody knows who she is. As I said, Harris has zero popularity, and all it takes is 3 minutes of listening to her talk to realize why nobody likes her. She's not very articulate. Let's just put it this way. Michelle Obama has claimed she doesn't want it. Now that might be the wild card. Maybe she really does want it, and she says, "Don't pick me, don't pick me." But the interesting thing is, the U.S. Democratic presidential politics has been dominated for 32 years by two families, the Clintons and the Obamas. Think about that. There is no bench. There's no one behind them, behind these two families. They are the only two families that have dominated presidential politics for 32 years. So a Michelle Obama administration would be a Barack Obama IV administration.
All right, standing in these scenarios we're creating now, could any other candidate be able to compete against Donald Trump at this point that the campaigns have already started? And having another candidate, can that candidate, if it's another person, get into the flow of the campaign?
Well, don't forget, people have already voted. The Democratic Party makes a big deal about protecting our democracy. We have to protect our democracy. Well, millions of people had voted for Joe Biden. And Joe Biden is the person they want to run for the Democratic nomination of the presidency. So if the Democratic Party is simply going to negate the votes of millions of Americans in the primary, how much do they really care about democracy? And if I had voted for Biden in the primary, I would be pretty annoyed if the party came and said, well, guess what? Your vote doesn't count.
Now, if the candidate changes and the Democratic Party wins, is it possible that there will be any change in U.S. policies generally?
If a different Democrat wins, you mean?
Yes, exactly.
Well, no, I don't think so. I don't think there's any chance because the Democratic Party is controlled by left-wing neocons. The Republican Party is controlled by right-wing neocons. I mean, at least if you're talking about foreign policy, I see very little possibility that the foreign policy would change. I think it would slightly improve if Trump was elected president, with the possibility that it could improve seriously, particularly if he does something to get the U.S. out of NATO or finds a way to create some peace in the Russia-Ukraine situation. There is zero opportunity, zero chance that a Democratic Party, because the Democrats have destroyed all of their progressives. Look what they did in two consecutive elections to Bernie Sanders, the peace candidate, with an asterisk, mostly the peace candidate. They cheated and destroyed him and denied him the nomination. So they do not want a peace president on their side.
All right, as politicians make their decisions and choices and create scenarios and so on, what are the ordinary Americans interpreting from all of these?
Well, hopefully they're interpreting that the political class and the media are a bunch of liars and don't trust them. And go to places like Twitter X, go to RT, go somewhere else to get your information because they're a bunch of liars. And all the purpose in what they do is to protect the narrative and to protect the power of the elites who run Washington, D.C. And they do it through the military-industrial complex, the pharma-industrial complex, and several other industrial complexes. We live in a society now in the U.S. of corporatism, where if you're wealthy and connected, you can increase your wealth exponentially by latching on to a political party.
All right, we have to leave it here now. Daniel McAdams, Executive Director of the Ron Paul Institute for Peace and Prosperity. Thank you so much for your insight here.